Hey user, welcome back. Episode 3 of the Cord Electric Player's Guide. Last episode we looked at the player page on blb.basketball.cbssports.com, your individual team pages, how contracts look. Let's look on the back end of the system. So we're going to take a look at the actual auction program. In the auction program, we have the auction tracker, which has the list of your individual teams. You're going to want to make sure that you're on year 3 for this year. This is the tab or the section in orange. And that is your individual teams. We can see, here's my team. I don't have any players on qualifying offer. I've got 5 keepers, 2 rookies, and I can see that list, their current contracts, how many years left they have on those contracts. You'll notice that the players that are RFAs, that are out of contracts, aren't actually listed on this page. I think logistically it just gets a little difficult to be able to keep track of all those as free agents and everything, to keep track on this spreadsheet. So even though you only have listed the players that are actually under contract, but you do have a whole host of other players. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, I've got at least like 8, 9, 10 guys or something that are on, I think 8 guys that are on the website that are those RFAs that could be selected. So we're going to take a look a lot more at that. We're going to do individual team preview episodes later, but here we're going to focus in on the contract values, as this is really the core of the in-depth financial system for the Cord Electric Fantasy Basketball League. So if we click on the contract values, and of course this is a Google Drive spreadsheet that has been shared with everybody in the league. Of course, if you do not have the Cord Electric Auction Program 2013-2014, have access to that, please let me know and I can certainly give you access to it. The best thing for you probably, if you're messing with this thing, you want to do your own calculations about trades or about if you cut certain people or what would it be the cap, is probably just to file and export this or make a copy of it or download as an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can use it as a Excel document or even an open document if you use OpenOffice, and mess with it yourself. But this is commentary only on this spreadsheet, so I don't let anyone mess with the sheet because of course this is our master program to track salaries and all that. So anyway, back to the contract values. So the major key to this system is to remember first that we're indexed first and foremost to the real NBA system. So at all times we attempt to adhere to the NBA salary cap fact from Larry Kuhn. If there's ever any sort of new thing that has come into play or a new question that I haven't considered, that hasn't been answered before, we defer to the salary cap fact and try to have the best interpretation that I can for it. I try to convert it to our system as closely as possible. When in doubt, as the end result, when in doubt, we will do the closest thing to the NBA salary cap fact from Larry Kuhn. Thank you, Larry Kuhn. So the big key here is that first we adhere to the real NBA salary cap, which is, I think this year, $58,679,000, which our contracts are in $100,000 increments, so it's effectively basically about $58.7 million. Now, individual contracts for 1 year are very simple. They are a 1-year contract, and they are simply the salary that you have. We can see this on the far left side of the screen here. Contracts could go up in theory. There's, I guess, the limit that I put on there is $25 million if you really wanted to go crazy with one individual player. Shaquille O'Neal style or whatever. Or Gilbert Arenas, I think, was making that sort of money at some time. We've never had a player go that high by any means. So if a player has a 1-year deal, it's extremely simple. Their salary is their salary. Their want is also equal to their salary. Now, what is want? This is the key to understanding this system. Want is #want is an evaluation of how much you want that player, how much money that you're really offering that player. We used to call it perceived value, how much the perceived value of the contract is. I just named it a little jazzier name of want here. But it's an idea of if you offer a player a multi-year deal, that player is going to generally prefer that multi-year deal to a single-year deal. But how do you compare a single-year deal or even a 2-year deal that's a higher per-year rate to a 2 or 3 year deal that's at a lower rate, but it is multi-year. So in the real world, a player, if you offered a player $20 million to play for one season, yeah, he'll take the 1 year deal over a 3 year deal for $7 million a year. Even though that 3 year deal is worth $21 million, but playing for 1 year, hey, I'm going to get $20 million. I'll do that and take my chances. So there has to be a balance between the security of a multi-year deal, but just the raw numbers of a 1 or simply 2 year deal. So how do we balance that? We call it want. So in the auction, when you bid on players, you don't actually bid their salary, you bid their want. So you bid a value based on a combination of their actual per year salary that they're going to make, spread out or factored in how long the deal is. On the back end, effectively what it is we take the first year of the deal, add half of the value of the second year of the deal, and add a quarter of the value of the third year deal, if it's a 3 year deal, obviously. So what that means is that mostly the player cares about what he's getting this season. He cares somewhat about what he's getting in the second year. He cares a little bit less about what's going on in the future because, players tend to think that they'll continue to get deals later. But that is the factor of want. So you can see here, if you offered for a 2 year deal, if you offered a player $4.5 million, $4.5 million want, that means that you give them 2.1 or 2.9 million the first year, 3.2 million the second year. Contracts go up by 10% per season. And you can see that happens universally. So if we had a team that won a bid for a player at 4.5 want, he could give them a 1 year, $4.5 million deal. So you could see that, just one season, nothing to worry about there. He could give him a 2 year deal, as said, that starts at 2.9 million, and the second year goes to 3.2 million, or as even a lower contract, we can see that 4.5 happens to be in between two values. We always round up in that case, so we go up to 4.7. That means a 3 year deal would start at 2.5 million, go up to 2.8, and go to 3.1 million. Now, obviously, you're paying him a player less per season if you go with a multi-year deal, so you're saving on your cap. You can have more players or better players, but of course the risk is you'd have to adhere to that contract. So you have to there's only a certain number of players that you can keep, and 5 veteran contracts here that you can keep per season at the beginning of the season before we go into the auction. And you can only keep 5 of those, and so if you need to get rid of a player, you have to basically cut his contract in what we call the amnesty, which allows you to cut a player based on his contract, but you lose money based on that. Basically, you have to cut him a check, and that counts against your cap. So the idea behind the amnesty is to allow some cap relief in case you made a mistake or have too many players or a guy gets injured and is ineffective, Anthony Hardaway kind of thing, while still penalizing you so that you can't just load up with multi-year deals and just jettison the guys for nothing. So we have a balance in between that. So big takeaways here. In the auction, in restricted free agency, and different aspects, when we bid on players, we actually bid on want, which for a 1 year deal is equal to the actual salary, very simple. For a 2 year deal, it's effectively a factor there that's 1.5, the first year deal plus half of the second year deal, which just, again, allows you to suss that out. And then in a third year deal, it's 1 plus a half plus a quarter. Again, it doesn't really matter about those values. Just remember that obviously contracts go down with the multi-years, but end result is you can only keep 5 players. I think that's going to end this episode. We'll talk about amnesty and some other pieces of the contract next episode. But again, familiarize yourself with this chart. You're going to want to reference it when we actually do the auction and when you bid on players in RFA. I know it looks kind of bleeding eye, tons of numbers there, but effectively, as you can see, it just goes up by $100,000 values. Every year goes up by 10%, and then the want calculation is just that factor in the multi-year deals. Thank you much from the Court Electric. We will see you in episode 4.